Hello, and welcome to the Integrative Health Convention 2019 online interviews. Today, we're going to find out more about Nick Davies, who's speaking at the Integrative Health Convention at the weekend of the 5th and the 6th of October at the Park Plaza in London this year. So welcome, Nick.
Thank you.
Thanks for spending some time with us today. Now, Nick Davies is the owner and director of the Warwickshire School of Hypnotherapy and creator of the BLAST technique, which treats post-traumatic stress disorder and trauma literally in minutes. They run courses in Coventry and they help people, therapists, to learn new skills to help more clients effectively and efficiently. They can be found at www.wsoh.co.uk and www.blast-technique.com, and we'll be posting those links below this video for you. So, Nick, thanks for joining us today.
You're welcome.
Should we begin by, why don't you let our audience know a little bit more about yourself and what your field involves?
Yeah, so I started this journey 13 years ago, and it was actually driven. I actually collapsed. I was working at BT and I was a manager there, and I was very career driven, working a lot of hours every week, and I was moving house at the same time, and I had lots and lots of stresses going on. And then one day I was attempting to move house, and I got gazumped, and then I ended up collapsing with stress. So very next day, I woke up with anxiety and panic, which was something I'd never experienced before, and that kind of really started my journey. That was 20 years ago, well, 19 years ago. So it started the journey into looking into the mind and everything else, and from there I experienced a number of different therapies, but the kind of things that really resonated with me and helped me was a mixture of hypnotherapy and EMDR. And that was essentially where I started my kind of journey into that.
And just tell us a little bit about what you do now, because I know you do lots of different things and you help lots of different people from different walks of life.
Yeah, so what I did is I decided to, after spending lots and lots of time researching and reading things and watching YouTube videos and going on courses and things like that, I decided to qualify in hypnotherapy, psychotherapy, Neurolinguistic programming, EMDR, and a number of different things. And I've spent the last kind of 13 years testing, refining. I have this kind of attitude that whatever I learn, what I try and do is I try and test those principles out in the real world, and then see what works the most quickly, and then refine and hone those principles. And out of that, I developed a few systems, in fact, but one of the things that I've created was a technique called the BLAST technique. And it was actually, there was a lady that I was treating. I never intended to get involved in trauma and PTSD. At the time when I first started, I wasn't sure if I was emotionally robust enough to deal with clients that experienced that. But I had a coaching client in, and lovely lady, and we were just, going along doing the coaching sessions. And then the one day she said, I'd love to give up smoking. So I said, yeah, no problem. So I took her into a hypnotic trance to do some work, and she had a huge abreaction, and she'd experienced an extremely violent rape that came out and was so distressing for her, but also for me. Some of the things that she was telling me, I couldn't even imagine, and I used the EMDR to treat her, and it took me about 3 sessions to resolve this issue. But both of us were exhausted afterwards, and from that day, I vowed to myself, that was 11 years ago, that I was going to find a quicker way of treating PTSD and trauma. So it became a real need, because I thought, well, I don't know that people aren't going to abreact. I'm obviously using hypnosis a lot and hypnotherapy. So from there, I'm very fortunate that I created a system called EMDR Accelerated, but it's moved so far away from EMDR now that we've rebranded it 5 years ago, and it's called the BLAST technique. And it's a technique and also a set of tools and a methodology around treating PTSD and trauma, which works really, really quickly. I believe it's the fastest and most effective thing out there at the moment.
So you're going to be coming to us at the Integrative Health Convention this October, and you're going to be talking a little bit more about the BLAST technique. I was lucky enough to come to one of your trainings many years ago, and when you called it Accelerated EMDR. So can you tell us a little bit more about the BLAST technique and what the audience will gain from coming to your lecture?
Yeah, so it's really, really important. I've turned myself into a self-proclaimed neurogeek, and I just become obsessed by things. And the same with, you know, all of my learning and everything else. I wanted to find out, you know, what is it about PTSD? Why does it happen in some people and not others? So during the talk that I'm going to do, we're going to go through the kind of history of it, the neuroscience, why people get PTSD, why some people don't. Also, the other thing that people don't teach is how to spot it. There are very strong body language signals that you can see in people who have PTSD versus people who don't. So I'm going to show you how to physically spot it. We're going to go through the NHS, the NICE guidelines for, I think NICE have renamed themselves now, but the guidelines for what they say that the NHS follows for how a doctor would make a diagnosis with PTSD, but also how to treat it. And I'm also going to go into some of the reasons why EMDR is so slow. EMDR is a fairly clinical process that works for the client with PTSD or trauma. But what it does, it doesn't engage at the root of the trauma. And one thing I'm very big on in all of the work I do is testing my work. So it's okay to say that you've treated PTSD or trauma, but my test is, can the person sit in a relaxed fashion in a chair and talk about the story of whatever happened to them without any emotional charge or emotional response to it? And that's the real test. And most techniques don't test for that. But with BLAST, I offer a 100% guarantee on it. I say, if I don't fix you and it doesn't remove the trauma, I'll treat you again for as long as you want for the rest of however long. Anyway, nobody's ever come back. Because what it does is we test the work very, very openly with the client. There's no kind of ego in there or anything like that. But what the great thing is about it is we open the trauma up, we treat it at the root, and then we test it to make sure that it's fully treated so the client can go away trauma-free for the rest of their days.
And it's a very quick technique. It doesn't take very long at all, does it?
No. I mean, there are differences in speeds. If you have a single layer trauma and a single event trauma, we can treat it within minutes. Some traumas, and this is what people don't realise, is traumas can be different. So you can have a multi-layered trauma. So for instance, let me give you a random example of a car accident. One person in the car accident would have a single trauma, it was just the actual event, whereas somebody else, it may be a multi-layered trauma. So one layer of the trauma is the knowing they were going to have an accident, 2 is the impact, and 3 is when they went to hospital afterwards, and then 4, they can be re-traumatized by going on other car journeys, and then it can turn into a phobia. BLAST is brilliant for phobias as well. In fact, one of the things that BLAST does really, really well, and this is why I'm excited to share it at the conference, is it will treat any significant emotional event. So any event in your life that has shaped you in any way, that has an emotional charge, that makes you move away from something, fear something, have nightmares. So we're talking something quite minor, maybe having to stand up at school and talk, and that's affected you with public speaking, that all the way up to complex PTSD and really, really terrible PTSD where horrific things have happened. It will treat all those things because the neuroscience shows that they're all kind of processed in the same areas of the brain. And the interesting thing is a lot of people say about these trauma treatments that it's the amygdala we're treating. The great thing is about neuroscience is it's moved on so much in the last 5 or 10 years. Mm-hmm. We're now showing that the amygdala is not actually implicated in this. The amygdala is doing exactly what it's designed to do. It's your threat detection and response system. So when you see danger or you hear danger or you feel danger, you need to respond. But actually people with PTSD and chronic anxiety, social anxiety, things like that, their brains don't respond in the same way. What happens is that normal stimuli that shouldn't trigger them, same with phobias, etc. There's a different part of the brain. It's called the bed nucleus, which sits at the top of the stria terminalis. It's still part of the limbic system, but that is now implicated in those disorders rather than the amygdala, which was previously thought 5 to 10 years ago, in fact.
It's interesting, the neuroscience. I've got a background in neuroscience, and I find it fascinating how this works. And one of the things that attracted me when I was researching, because my journey started very similar to yours, I started looking at NLP and then hypnotherapy. And when I came across EMDR, as a GP in the NHS, I don't have the luxury of time. And one of the things that attracted me to your to the accelerated EMDR course was it could be done quite nicely in the standard 10-minute consultation that we're limited to in the NHS.
Yeah, and that's the wonderful thing. And what I've kind of tried to do with this experience, because I come from a very, obviously, my personal experience, client-based experiences and things like that, is I'm very, very driven to make it the best experience for the client possible. It's nothing to do with my ego. It's nothing to do with me personally. You know, I want the experience for the client to be the best possible. And one of the things that I found with EMDR, which enabled me to move it forward, was there's no connection between the EMDR practitioner and the client. There's no kindness. So we changed that experience, because what I found is that certainly what was lacking when I went for things like counselling, there was no care and comfort there for me, because when I opened up, I didn't feel that the person A could resolve what I was telling them, but B, I didn't feel safe opening up. And the great thing is about BLAST, which actually the acronym is Bilateral Analysis and Stimulation Treatment. The great thing about it is it's a very nurturing and elegant process to work with the client, where the client feels that they can open up quickly, because it is a very fast process, but we go straight into the root. And rather than chop the weed, the top of the thing we're trying to get rid of, we go straight to the root, take the root away. And about 70% of the people that are treated with BLAST start laughing, and they have this kind of thing where they're going, I can talk about it now, but it doesn't bother me. Why is that? And they get this kind of a sense of comfort, really. And that's really what I wanted to do. And I say, really do, try and find out about BLAST, because it's not me. I've been so fortunate to, teach people like yourself and other people that have given me little snippets of information along the way and help. That really BLAST is a movement of lots and lots of different people who have influences that hopefully I'm going to be able to get out to a much wider audience.
And hopefully at the convention, where we're bringing together experts like yourself to share their concepts, their ideas, and we hope that we can spread this word, because it's unbelievable how many people do not know this stuff. They're stuck in the traditional ways of training and teaching, and these new techniques that are coming up are absolutely fantastic, and they're so quick.
Well, one of the things that was interesting, I did a talk in London a couple of weeks ago in Holborn, and I said to the audience, we were doing a talk on fears, phobias and traumas and PTSD, and I said, if anybody has got a single trauma, one event, so no multiples, because that can take me a little bit longer, I said, we've got 10 minutes at the end. Has anybody had anything happen to them that's affected them, and would they like to come forward? Anyway, a lady volunteered from the audience. She said, I was bullied in my workplace by my boss. They're very angry with me. Consequently, I'm unable to return to the type of job that I want because of the fear of that situation. It really upset her. She was off work for a period of time, this, that, and the other. Anyway, so I treated it literally in 5 minutes. And I said, try and get the memory back now. Nice and relaxed, just tell me about what happened. And then she was really kind of shocked that she could tell me the story without anything. And then she started laughing and just said, oh, thank you, that's been with me for 13 years. And then the funny thing was, it was so quick. Afterwards in the bar, when I was talking to people about the process, a guy came up to me and said, oh, she was a fix, wasn't she? You must have paid her, it was that quick. And I said, honestly, I've no idea who she is, and B, I would never pay anybody to do that. And the funny thing was, I did a talk there afterwards as well about a week ago, and the same thing, well, not the same thing happened, but there was a woman who's very skeptical at the back of the room who'd been bitten by a dog when she was young and consequently had a phobia of dogs. And I said, come on down. I said, this is not a test of me against you. This is the BLAST technique, which has been crafted over a number of years. And I'm just going to go through the process so we can alleviate whatever's bothering you. And again, within, I think this one was 6 minutes, and she couldn't get this trauma back of the dog. And she was shaking her head. And she said, I can't believe it. I can't believe it. Wow. And I'm trying to get away from those things because sometimes it works too quickly that people are so shocked by it, they think it's a gimmick or something like that. That's why I study the neuroscience and the reasons behind everything, because I want to have the backing of people like yourself and things, where people say, it's a very well researched process, and it's not something that I've just created. This is 11 years work. We're on version 12 of BLAST now. So every time I find out something new, I'll refine it and get it out there. And that's why I'm grateful to be able to talk at this conference, to get that message out to, a wider audience.
Fantastic. That's amazing. Having thought about the health convention and the audience that are made up of doctors, therapists, and the members of the public, where do you see your particular practice fitting in with integrative health?
I see the way I work is as psychotherapy and complementary health. It assists people in those processes. And what I say to people is, I never intended for BLAST to be the be all and end all of everything. It's just a very, very effective and efficient tool for treating PTSD and trauma. Yes, it will treat lots and lots of other things, but what I encourage people is to look at kind of a more holistic approach to treatment where, and like I say, it might not be the right thing for certain people. It is an eye movement technique. But, if people want a trauma resolved very, very quickly, I believe it is the most efficient thing out there. But it works so tremendously well with other therapies. So, definitely psychotherapy and complementary health.
Excellent. Now, my last question that we're asking everyone, as a therapist and a teacher with many years of experience under your belt, what do you think in particular is the key to healing in what you do? What do you think? What is it that makes the difference?
So for me, it's a two-pronged approach. The first thing is to have a really nurturing, good relationship with your client. It has to come from a real place where you've got great communication, you've got a great relationship. You and the client both want to work together as a team. And the second thing is having the best skills that are out there currently available to everybody at your disposal. And that's one thing that I'm very blessed to have done, is whenever I've thought there was a new training course or something new I needed to learn, or a new book or something, that's what I've done. I've crafted myself and improved myself, and I'm hoping that we'll be on BLAST version 13 next year, etc., and just keep improving those skills. So I can feel I'm the best person for the client, and the client knows, or the patient, that I'm the best person for them as well. And we've got that really good fit.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time here today. And thank you all for taking the time to watch and listen to this interview. Remember to get your tickets early now from our website by following the links below. We're at the Integrative Health Convention at the Park Plaza, Victoria in London on the 5th and 6th of October in 2019. You can use this discount code right down here, and we'll give you a 5% discount as a gift from us to you for sharing your time with us. When we see you in October in London, you'll get to meet Nick Davies, myself, and all the other speakers who'll be sharing so much more with you then. See you then. Thank you so much. Bye for now.
Brilliant. Bye-bye.